The sun was setting over the small town of Maplewood, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. John Carter stood in his garage, wiping grease from his hands onto a rag that had seen better days. The air smelled faintly of oil and metal, a scent he had grown to love over the years. His garage wasn't much, just an old wooden structure with peeling paint, but it was his sanctuary, the place where he felt most at home. He liked fixing things, taking broken machines apart and putting them back together until they worked. Again, it gave him a sense of purpose, something steady in a world that often felt chaotic. As John tightened the last bolt on an old motorcycle engine, he noticed something unusual in the sky. At first, he thought it was just another plane passing overhead, but this was different. There were no blinking lights or the familiar hum of jet engines. Instead, 3 glowing orbs hovered silently above the trees, their light shifting between shades of blue and green. They moved slowly at first, then faster, darting erratically as if searching for something or someone. John stepped out of the garage, squinting up at the strange lights. "What the hell is that?" he muttered under his breath. He wasn't the type to believe in UFOs or aliens. Those stories always seemed like nonsense, cooked up by people looking for attention. But this was real, undeniable. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach, a mix of curiosity and unease that made his heart race. Before he could think twice, one of the orbs descended rapidly, stopping just above his head. A bright beam of light shot down, enveloping him completely. John tried to move, to run, but his body wouldn't obey. It was as though the light itself held him in place, freezing him in time. Panic surged through him as the ground beneath his feet disappeared, replaced by an overwhelming sensation of weightlessness. And then everything went black. When John opened his eyes, he found himself standing in a room unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls shimmered with a soft, iridescent glow, pulsating gently as if alive. The air smelled clean, almost sterile, and there was a faint hum that vibrated through his chest. In front of him stood 2 figures, tall and slender, with translucent skin that glowed faintly blue. Their faces were smooth, featureless except for 2 large, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to pierce straight into his soul. One of them stepped forward, its movements fluid and graceful. "You are John Carter," it said, its voice echoing not in his ears, but directly inside his mind. "We have been observing you." John blinked, trying to process what was happening. "Observing me? For what? Who are you?" "I am Vela," the figure replied calmly. "This is Corin. We represent a collective far beyond your understanding. Humanity has intrigued us for centuries, yet we question whether your species deserves to continue existing." John's jaw dropped. Wait. You're telling me you've been watching us? And now you're deciding if we get to live or die? That's insane." Corin tilted its head slightly, studying John with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Your kind is destructive, reckless. You wage wars, destroy your planet, and show little regard for consequences. Why should we allow such behavior to persist?" John clenched his fists, anger bubbling up inside him. "Because you don't know us. Yeah, sure, humans mess up a lot. But we also create, we build, we dream. You can't just write us off because of our mistakes." Vela exchanged a glance with Corin, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps," she said finally, "but actions speak louder than words. Show us why humanity is worth saving." For a moment, John didn't know what to say. How could he possibly argue for all of humanity when he barely understood these beings? But then he remembered something his father used to tell him. Sometimes, the best way to fight is to stand your ground. So he took a deep breath and looked Vela straight in the eye. "Fine. If you want proof, I'll give it to you." But don't expect me to make excuses for the bad stuff. Humans aren't perfect, we never claimed to be. What makes us special is that we keep going, even when things seem impossible. There was a pause, the kind that stretched longer than it should, and Vela nodded. Very well. We will observe further before making our decision. With that, the room dissolved around him, and John found himself back in his garage, the motorcycle engine still warm beneath his fingertips. He sat down heavily on a nearby stool, his mind racing. Had any of it really happened? Or had he imagined the whole thing? But as he looked up at the night sky, now clear and star-filled, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life, and maybe the fate of humanity, had just changed forever. The next morning, John woke up feeling like he'd been hit by a truck. His head throbbed, and his thoughts were jumbled. But the memory of the previous night was clear as day. He couldn't shake the image of Vela and Corin, their glowing forms and the weight of their words. Humanity's fate rested in the balance, and somehow he was at the center of it all. As he sipped his coffee, staring blankly at the wall, he realized there was no way to prepare for what might come next. Later that afternoon, the same eerie light filled his garage again. This time, John didn't resist. He felt himself being lifted into the air, surrounded by warmth and energy before landing softly inside the alien ship. Vela and Corin stood waiting, their expressions unreadable. "We have decided to give you an opportunity," Vela said, her voice calm but firm. "You will witness humanity's actions across time and space. Show us why your species deserves to endure." Before John could respond, the room shifted around him. The shimmering walls dissolved into scenes from Earth's past. He found himself standing on a battlefield during World War II, watching soldiers charge forward despite the chaos and destruction around them. Some fell, others kept moving, driven by determination and duty. Then the scene changed, and he was in a bustling city where people rushed to help victims after an earthquake. Strangers worked together, sharing food, blankets, and comfort without hesitation. But not all the visions were hopeful. John saw moments of cruelty to slavery, genocide, environmental disasters caused by greed and neglect. Each scene hit him hard, forcing him to confront both the best and worst of humanity. Through it all, Vela and Corin remained silent. Observing his reactions closely, at one point, the scene shifted to a small classroom in a rundown neighborhood. A young teacher named Sarah Miller stood at the front, speaking passionately about literature to a group of kids who looked more interested in their phones than her lesson. But Sarah didn't give up. She walked between the desks, handing out books and encouraging even the quietest students to share their thoughts. When one boy hesitantly raised his hand, she smiled warmly, making him feel seen and valued. John watched as her patience turned reluctant learners into eager participants. "She cares," he muttered aloud. "Even when it seems pointless, she keeps trying." The next stop was a war zone. Explosions echoed in the distance, and smoke filled the air. Amid the rubble, John spotted Ryan Brooks, a soldier crouched behind a crumbling wall. He wasn't firing his weapon. Instead, he was helping a wounded civilian reach safety. Sweat dripped down Ryan's face as he carried the man over his shoulder, dodging bullets and debris. Once they reached shelter, Ryan handed the man off to medics before running back toward the fighting. He's risking his life for someone else, John thought. That has to count for something. Finally, the scene shifted to a modern laboratory. Emily Dawson, a scientist with tired eyes and ink-stained fingers, leaned over a microscope, jotting notes furiously. Around her, other researchers worked tirelessly, analyzing data and testing theories. They were working on renewable energy solutions, hoping to reverse some of the damage humans had done to the planet. Emily paused to explain her findings to a younger colleague, her excitement contagious. If we can figure this out, she said, we might actually have a chance. When the visions ended, John found himself back aboard the alien ship, breathless and overwhelmed. Vela studied him carefully. What did you see? She asked. I saw everything, John replied, his voice trembling. The good, the bad, the ugly. Humans aren't perfect. We make mistakes, big ones. But we also try to fix them. People like Sarah, Ryan, and Emily, they care. They work hard, even when it feels hopeless. That's what makes us special. We don't give up. Corin frowned, clearly unconvinced. Hope is fragile. Compassion is fleeting. Your species has shown time and again that it cannot be trusted to act wisely. John turned to face him, his frustration boiling over. Yeah, we screw up. But every time we fall, we get back up. You want perfection? Good luck finding that. Anywhere. What you saw proves that we're worth saving because we're still learning. We're still growing. Vela tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. Perhaps there is merit in imperfection, she said slowly. But we must see more before deciding. The aliens whisked John away again, showing him glimpses of humanity's potential. He watched astronauts repair satellites in orbit, farmers tending crops under harsh conditions, artists creating masterpieces that transcended language barriers. Each moment reinforced his belief that humanity, though flawed, possessed qualities worth preserving. Courage, creativity, resilience. These weren't just abstract concepts. They were alive in the hearts of ordinary people, doing extraordinary things. As the journey continued, John began to notice subtle changes in Vela. Her gaze softened, and she lingered longer on scenes of kindness and innovation. Corin, however, remained rigid, his skepticism unwavering. These acts are admirable, he admitted, grudging processing. Back aboard the alien ship, the air felt heavier than before. John could sense the tension between Vela and Corin as they stood on opposite sides of the room. Their glowing forms seemed dimmer, their usual calm demeanor replaced by something more intense. Vela's translucent skin flickered faintly, a sign that she was deep in thought. Corin, on the other hand, radiated an icy resolve, his posture rigid and unyielding. The weight of humanity's fate hung in the silence between them. We cannot delay our decision any longer, Corin said finally, his voice echoing inside John's mind. The evidence is clear. Humanity's destructive tendencies outweigh its virtues. Allowing them to continue unchecked poses too great a risk. Vela turned to face him, her expression steady but firm. And yet, we have seen moments of hope. Acts of courage and compassion that defy logic. Should we dismiss those entirely? If imperfection defines growth, then perhaps humanity deserves another chance. John stepped forward, unable to stay silent. You're talking about wiping out billions of people based on assumptions. You don't know us. You've only seen snapshots, fragments of who we are. What gives you the right to decide? Corin's gaze locked onto John, sharp and unrelenting. We have observed countless species across the stars. Those that fail to evolve beyond their flaws meet extinction. It is not cruelty, it is necessity. John clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. But evolution takes time. Humans aren't done yet. We're still figuring things out. You can't judge us for what we were without considering what we could become. Vela nodded slowly, her luminous eyes softening. Perhaps John is correct. Perhaps we require one final test, one undeniable demonstration of humanity's potential. Corin hesitated, his stance wavering slightly. What do you propose? Vela gestured toward a holographic display that materialized between them. It showed Earth from space, serene and beautiful, against the vast blackness of the universe. Then suddenly, a massive asteroid appeared on a collision course with the planet. "We will simulate an existential threat," she explained. "If humanity responds with unity and ingenuity, it may prove their worthiness to endure. If they succumb to panic and division, then our judgment will be final." Before John could protest, the scene shifted again. He found himself standing in a bustling city square, surrounded by panicked crowds. News broadcasts blared from every screen, warning of the impending disaster. Scientists and leaders scrambled to devise solutions, while ordinary citizens prepared for the worst. John realized this wasn't just a simulation for him. It was real. Somehow, he was part of it now. Determined to play his part, John headed straight for his garage. He knew he couldn't stop an asteroid, but he could help in smaller ways. Using scrap metal and spare parts, he began building emergency devices, portable water purifiers, solar-powered chargers, and communication relays. Word spread quickly through the town, and soon people started showing up at his door, offering tools, materials, and assistance. Among them were familiar faces. Sarah Miller, the teacher, brought her students to help assemble the devices. Ryan Brooks, the soldier, organized volunteers into teams. And Emily Dawson, the scientist, provided technical guidance to ensure everything worked properly. As days passed, the world rallied together in ways John had never imagined. Governments set aside differences to collaborate on evacuation plans and asteroid deflection strategies. Communities came together to support one another, sharing resources and sheltering the vulnerable. Even amidst fear and uncertainty, acts of kindness shone brightly. A baker handed out free bread to families in need. A mechanic repaired vehicles for free so people could flee danger zones. Strangers held hands and prayed in the streets, united by a shared purpose. John watched it all unfold with a mixture of awe and pride. Humanity wasn't perfect. It never would be. But when faced with a common enemy, it could rise above itself. People weren't thinking about borders or politics anymore. They were focused on survival, on protecting one another. It was messy and chaotic, but it was also beautiful. Meanwhile, Vela and Corin observed silently from their ship, monitoring the global response. Vela's glow brightened as she witnessed scenes of cooperation and innovation. She saw scientists working around the clock, engineers constructing massive rockets, and ordinary citizens volunteering in droves. Even children pitched in, drawing pictures of hope and resilience to lift spirits. Each act of bravery and selflessness reinforced her belief that humanity was worth saving. Corin, however, remained skeptical. "This unity is temporary," he argued. "Once the crisis passes, they will return to their old ways. Conflict, greed, destruction. It is inevitable." Vela turned to him, her voice gentle but resolute. "Change begins with a single step. Humanity has shown us that it is capable of greatness when pushed to its limits. Is it fair to deny them the opportunity to grow further?" The debate continued unresolved as the simulated asteroid hurtled closer to Earth. At the last possible moment, humanity succeeded. A coordinated effort launched a fleet of rockets carrying nuclear payloads, successfully deflecting the asteroid just enough to avoid impact. Cheers erupted worldwide as news of the victory spread. People hugged strangers, cried tears of relief, and celebrated the triumph of collective effort. When the simulation ended, John found himself back aboard the alien ship, exhausted but exhilarated. Vela approached him, her glow steadier now. "You have shown us much, John Carter. Humanity's capacity for resilience and unity is undeniable." Corin crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "I remain unconvinced, but perhaps there is value in observing further." John exhaled deeply, realizing they hadn't made a final decision yet. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had a fighting chance after all. The atmosphere aboard the alien ship was tense, charged with unspoken emotions. Vela and Corin stood apart, their glowing forms casting faint shadows on the shimmering walls. John could feel the weight of their disagreement pressing down on him. He had done everything he could to prove humanity's worth, but now it was up to the aliens to decide. The silence stretched on, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's energy. Vela finally spoke, her voice calm yet firm. Corin, we cannot deny what we have witnessed. Humanity may be flawed, but it has shown us moments of courage, creativity, and unity that defy logic. To erase them would be to extinguish a spark of potential that could grow into something extraordinary. Corin's expression remained stoic, his translucent skin flickering faintly as if reflecting his inner turmoil. You are allowing emotion to cloud your judgment. Their flaws are not minor, they are fundamental. Destruction and chaos follow them wherever they go. Allowing them to continue unchecked risks harm not only to themselves, but to others. John stepped forward, his heart pounding. He knew this was his last chance to make them see the truth. You keep talking about humanity like it's some abstract idea, like we're nothing more than statistics or patterns. But we're real. Every single person out there is fighting for something: family, dreams, survival. You can't just wipe us out because you think we're too broken to fix ourselves. Corin turned to face him, his large eyes unreadable. And yet, you admit to being broken. Why should we trust that you will change? Your history is filled with cycles of destruction and regret. John took a deep breath, searching for the right words. He thought about his own life, the struggles and losses that had shaped him. His father's death had left a void he still carried, but it had also taught him resilience. Fixing machines in his garage wasn't just about earning a living. It was about finding purpose in small, meaningful acts. He realized then that humanity's strength lay not in perfection, but in its ability to rise after falling. Because we learn, John said finally, his voice steady. Yeah, we mess up a lot, but every time we do, we try to make it right. Losing my dad nearly destroyed me, but it also made me stronger. It taught me to value the people around me, to care about what I leave behind. That's what humans do. We take our pain and turn it into something better. Vela tilted her head slightly, her glow brightening as if moved by his words. He speaks truthfully. Imperfection does not equate to failure. It is the struggle to overcome that defines growth. Corin frowned, clearly conflicted. For the first time, his rigid demeanor faltered. Emotion clouds reason. Yet even I must acknowledge that humanity possesses qualities we have rarely encountered elsewhere, qualities that may balance their flaws. John seized the moment, pressing further. You said you've observed other species across the stars. Did any of them ever surprise you? Did they show you something unexpected, something that made you question your assumptions? That's what humans do best. We're unpredictable, sure, but that's what makes us unique. Vela exchanged a glance with Corin, their silent communication speaking volumes. After a long pause, Corin sighed, his form dimming slightly. Perhaps there is merit in giving them another chance, but it cannot come without conditions. They must prove they are willing to change, to grow beyond their destructive tendencies. Vela nodded, her expression thoughtful. Then let us offer them guidance rather than judgment. We can share knowledge and technology to help them avoid repeating past mistakes. In return, they must embrace cooperation and empathy on a global scale. John felt a surge of hope, though he knew the fight wasn't over. That sounds fair. Humans might not get it right immediately, but if you give us tools to build a better future, I think we'll take it seriously. With their decision made, Vela and Corin revealed themselves to humanity not as conquerors or judges, but as allies. Using advanced holographic projections, they addressed world leaders and citizens alike, explaining their mission and offering assistance. They shared breakthroughs in medicine, renewable energy, and space exploration, accelerating humanity's progress while urging caution against repeating historical errors. John became a key figure in bridging the gap between humans and aliens. He worked alongside Sarah Miller, Ryan Brooks, and Emily Dawson to form a council dedicated to fostering understanding and collaboration. Together, they ensured that the transition was smooth and mutually beneficial. Sarah used her teaching skills to educate communities about the aliens' intentions, while Ryan helped organize global efforts to implement new technologies responsibly. Emily focused on integrating alien advancements into scientific research. Ensuring ethical use. As weeks turned into months, humanity began to adapt. Renewable energy sources replaced fossil fuels, curing diseases once thought incurable. Space exploration advanced rapidly, with humans venturing farther into the cosmos than ever before. People started working together across borders, setting aside old grudges in favor of a shared vision for the future. Through it all, Vela and Corin remained vigilant, watching closely to ensure humanity stayed true to its promises. Though Corin still harbored doubts, he couldn't deny the progress being made. Vela, on the other hand, grew increasingly hopeful, seeing firsthand the resilience and ingenuity of the human spirit. One evening, as John stood outside his garage gazing at the stars, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Humanity was far from perfect, but for the first time, it felt like they were moving in the right direction. With newfound allies among the stars, the possibilities seemed endless. Whatever challenges lay ahead, John knew one thing for certain: humans wouldn't face them alone. The months that followed were unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The arrival of Vela and Corin sparked a wave of change that swept across the globe, reshaping societies in ways both profound and unexpected. People who once argued over borders and ideologies now worked side by side, united by a shared goal: to build a better future with the help of their alien allies. The knowledge and technology shared by the extraterrestrials opened doors to possibilities that had once seemed like science fiction. John Carter found himself at the center of it all, acting as a bridge between humans and the aliens. He spent his days traveling between cities, meeting with leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens to ensure the transition went smoothly. It wasn't always easy. There were skeptics who distrusted the aliens' intentions and others who feared the rapid pace of change, but John's calm demeanor and unwavering belief in humanity's potential helped ease tensions. He often reminded people that progress wasn't about perfection. It was about taking steps forward, no matter how small. Sarah Miller became a guiding light for education, helping schools integrate new technologies into their curriculums while teaching students about the importance of empathy and cooperation. Her classroom transformed into a hub of innovation, where children learned not only math and science, but also how to solve problems together. Ryan Brooks used his military experience to coordinate global efforts, ensuring resources reached those most in need. His leadership inspired trust, and soon communities around the world began working together more effectively than ever before. Emily Dawson spearheaded scientific research, combining human ingenuity with alien advancements to tackle challenges like climate change and disease. Her breakthroughs saved countless lives and gave hope to millions. As humanity embraced its new partnership, Vela and Corin continued to observe closely. Vela grew increasingly optimistic, her glowing form brighter than ever as she witnessed the positive impact of their intervention. She marveled at how quickly humans adapted, turning their flaws into strengths. Even Corin, though still cautious, began to soften. He saw moments of genuine connection, people helping strangers, nations setting aside old grievances, and communities coming together to rebuild after disasters. For the first time, he started to believe that perhaps humanity was capable of lasting change. One evening, as John stood on a hill overlooking Maplewood, he watched a fleet of alien ships descend from the sky. Their sleek forms shimmered in the moonlight, casting an otherworldly glow over the town. This time, however, there was no fear, only anticipation. Vela and Corin had called for a final meeting, and John knew it would be important. When he arrived at the designated location, a large open field on the outskirts of town, he found a crowd gathered. Scientists, politicians, teachers, soldiers, farmers, all walks of life were represented. Vela and Corin emerged from their ship, their presence commanding yet gentle. They addressed the assembly, their voices resonating in everyone's minds. Humanity has shown us remarkable growth, Vela began, her tone warm and encouraging. You have embraced our guidance and used it wisely. Your capacity for unity and innovation is undeniable. Corin stepped forward, his expression serious but less rigid than before. However, this is not the end of our involvement. We will remain vigilant, ready to intervene if necessary. Your progress must continue, or the consequences will be severe. John listened intently, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. Humanity had been given a second chance, but it came with expectations. The aliens weren't leaving entirely. They would stay as observers, ensuring humans stayed on the right path. It was a fair arrangement, one that reflected both trust and accountability. Vela continued, her words filled with hope. We offer you not just technology, but also friendship. Together, we can explore the stars, uncover mysteries, and create a future where all species thrive. The crowd erupted into cheers, overwhelmed by gratitude and excitement. For the first time in history, humanity felt truly connected, not just to each other, but to something greater. As the aliens prepared to depart, John approached Vela and Corin, extending his hand in a gesture of thanks. You didn't just save us, he said, his voice steady. You gave us a reason to believe in ourselves again. We won't let you down. Vela placed her translucent hand over his, a silent acknowledgement of trust. Corin nodded, his skepticism replaced by cautious optimism. With that, the two aliens returned to their ship, which rose gracefully into the sky before disappearing among the stars. In the weeks that followed, life on Earth began to stabilize. Renewable energy powered cities, curing diseases became routine, and space exploration entered a golden age. Humanity's relationship with the aliens evolved into a true alliance, marked by mutual respect and collaboration. John, Sarah, Ryan, and Emily remained at the forefront of these efforts, ensuring that the lessons learned during the crisis weren't forgotten. As John stood outside his garage one night, gazing at the stars, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought out the best in humanity. Imperfections still existed. Of course, they always would, but they no longer defined the species. Instead, they served as reminders of how far humanity had come and how much farther it could go. With newfound allies among the stars, humanity embarked on a journey of discovery, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. John smiled, knowing that the story wasn't over, it was just beginning.